All right. Let me adjust the mic a bit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Contra Costa College Workforce Wednesday City of Hercules panel discussion. I'm Mariah Bruce, Senior Workforce Manager. Thank you for joining us both in person and virtually. We are so excited to help you learn about career options and explore how you can achieve your career goals with the City of Hercules. I know many of you have questions about working with the city, so I'll get right into the exciting session that we have planned for you today. So, for those of you that are online, before we start, I'd just like to ask all virtual participants to mute their audio. If you have questions, definitely enter them into the chat along the way. As you'll see on the next slide, we'll have time for Q&A from the audience. And so we'll be able to address your questions during the Q&A part of the event. So this is the order of events for today. We're going to start off with the panelists having the opportunity to introduce themselves. There'll be facilitator questions that I will have for the panelists that I'll share out. The panelists will have closing remarks. We'll open it up for Q&A from the audience. And at that time, make sure you wait for the microphone to get to you if you're here in person so that the people on Zoom can hear your amazing questions. And then we'll have a resume workshop that will kind of wrap up and make sure you're able to take the next steps for these opportunities. All right. So I'd like to give each panelist a little time to introduce themselves. We can start off with Chief Vasquez here.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. I want to thank the college and Mr. Dante Hall, our city manager, for putting this together. This is a little bit of a reunion for me, as I was a former student here at Contra Costa College back in 1996 and in 2003. I have been the chief of police now for 2 years. I've been with the City of Hercules for 20 years. A local guy. I grew up in Berkeley, moved to Richmond as a teenager, went to high school in Richmond. So I'm very familiar with this area and this campus. This is a good place to be. All 4 of my children went to school here and graduated from this college. My wife actually went to the nursing program here, so I have a lot of connection to this college. So it's nice to see your interest here today in our city and some of our professions. I got here, through some hard work. Like I said, I'm a family man. I've grown up in this area. And I'd just like to thank you guys for being here today. Looking forward to answering some of your questions.
Thank you so much, Chief. And if we can have an introduction from Christopher Roque.
Yes, hi, my name is Christopher Roque. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Hercules. I've been with Hercules for a little over 8 years now as the Park and Rec Director. I've worked in several different municipalities. I worked in college athletics for many years at St. Mary's College and the University of San Francisco. I am a local product. I grew up in Alameda. I did not attend Contra Costa College, and I can't possibly follow in Chief Vasquez's repertoire here of all of his accolades here, but I'm happy to be here and want to thank the college for inviting us.
Thank you. And Dante Hall?
Thank you. My name is Dante Hall, and I'm the city manager for Hercules, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you guys for just coming and being interested in what we do. My career path was a little bit different. I actually was born and raised in Los Angeles and lived there for most of my younger years, and I actually have an undergraduate degree in social work. So I thought I was going to be a social worker, but my career path really started when I linked up with one of my first mentors in the city of Pasadena, who happened to be the mayor of the city of Pasadena. What he hired me to be a field rep, to be an ombudsman to community members who had trouble kind of navigating through red tape of the city and regulations and different things. I fell in love with it, and I found just kind of my mission and purpose for this. And so I worked my way through various cities and focusing on economic development and various other things. And I've been here with the City of Hercules for 3 years now, and it's been a very good experience. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Dante. And Mike Roberts?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Roberts. I'm the Public Works Director, City Engineer for the City of Hercules. Like the police chief, my 4 sons also went to community college, but not here. So the department I oversee is City Engineering and Public Works. So City Engineering does things like designs roads, landscaping, wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants, bridges. We also employ environmental engineers, biologists, and such. Then on the maintenance and operations side, we have people who do painting, repairs to sidewalks. We also contract out a lot of our capital improvement projects where we work with contractors who are in the trade industries. So in sum, there are a lot of careers in public works across a broad spectrum of specialties. And as I look out here today, I see a lot of people, who, if interested, you guys certainly look motivated enough and sharp enough to go after a job such as this and be employed in the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Shauna Fields?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shauna Field. I am a senior planner in the Community Development Department of the City of Hercules. So community development includes planning, code enforcement, and building. And so I'm on the planning end of that. When you want to do something with your property, I'm usually the first stop to check the zoning and to check to see what the city regulations are that govern development of the property. So I am not originally from California. I am from Oregon, and then I spent about 15 years in Iowa, and then I came to California. So I've been a planner in a few different areas, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you all for those introductions. And again, thank you so much for being here today. So I will now move on to the questions that we have pre-prepared, where we'll get some insights. And don't forget, if you start having questions that come up along the way, keep them in mind, because we'll have some time for Q&A after these few questions. So the first question is for Dante. It's, how would you describe the culture within the City of Hercules, and what sets it apart from other organizations?
Great question. Our city, I would say, our culture is rooted in the community that we serve. We serve a really diverse community. We're a small community, and that's really kind of the origin of a lot of the larger cities. They really started out as small, kind of tribal groups and villages, essentially, of people working together to get things done. And I would say our culture in the organization is very similar to that. We have our mission statement, which talks about the quality of life, and ultimately we provide services, but we have some values that we attach to those services that we provide. We want to provide them with integrity. We want to be transparent, but we also value things like collaboration. We can't do it all ourselves, so we have to work with other groups, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today. We want to collaborate with Contra Costa College, essentially, to provide services and better our community. So I think our culture is really wrapped around certain values like integrity, service, and teamwork. And I think if someone were to come to our city, I think that they would find that if they want to work with our city. And I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of organizations. Because we're small, we have to utilize teamwork, collaboration, and we have to be creative. And so all of those kind of juices of creativity that you guys all have and that you're developing, would find a place in a city like the City of Hercules.
It's definitely beneficial to be able to be creative in your workspace. Um, so there's a couple more slides. So this just shares a little bit about the organizational chart of
Yes.
the management team, and you can see where the representation here is on the panel in regards to the management team. And then this slide just shows a little bit about the mission and some images from the City of Hercules.
Right, and that's just our mission. Images are, we're involved in really solving problems. You know, as a city manager, if you can imagine kind of an hourglass, so it's wide at the top and then it narrows and then it gets wide. The city manager's position is right in the middle of that. So all of the issues, aspirations, and things that the community members have, good ideas, bad ideas, terrible ideas, you have to kind of filter through those things and understand what service the city can provide in the middle section. And then the bottom is really the results and the output, the better housing, the more affordable housing, the providing of childcare for people that need it, dealing with unemployment, dealing with some of the social ills and problems that we're facing right now. And so those images represent the policy kind of level. That's just one piece of it. So there's a very technical piece of it, and really analyzing an issue and getting to the root cause. And then there is setting up a system to provide results to resolve that. And so I just put that down to represent the whole spectrum of kind of what we're dealing with, from cradle to grave, is generally what we have to deal with and what we have to resolve for the community.
Wonderful, thank you. The next question is for Mike. So what inspired you to pursue a career in your field of city engineering and public works? And how has your journey unfolded since you made the decision to get into your field?
As far as what inspired me to become an engineer and then a department director in public works, I have to really go back to, honestly, my childhood, my formation period. I was raised in a secular, humanistic family. My father was a community college professor at another school, and he taught English and poetry. And then my mother volunteered at nonprofit organizations, such as clinics like from the United Farm Workers back in that time. So I was imbued with a sense of public service from a very young age. I think what really made a difference for me is in high school I joined a volunteer fire department where I had the opportunity to respond to medical emergencies, house fires, grass fires. The combination of helping other people, working with fire trucks, hoses, pumps, it really resonated with me. And so that, coupled with my strength in the physical sciences and chemistry and math and physics, really led me to enrolling at University of California at Davis, where I graduated with a civil engineering degree in 1988. So that's pretty much how I got into the field. Now, in terms of how my journey unfolded since then, my first public service job was with the City of Antioch, where I was in the Capital Improvements Division of the Public Works Department. So that's building roads, replacing sewer lines, putting in water lines, working on pump stations, traffic signals, all these sorts of things. And after 4 years of qualifying experience there, I then did pass the necessary exams to be awarded a professional engineering license in civil engineering. So that's something that's required by the state on that career path if you want to practice. But at the time, I was looking at my job in public service. I was trying to figure out why things were the way they were. And I didn't have good answers. So at that point, I went back to school, enrolled at what was then Cal State Hayward at the time, and got a master's in public administration. And then moved on. I was interested in growing in my profession and being a manager, so I moved on. I actually took a job in Washington State at a county where I was a superintendent of roads in a public works department with approximately 65 people in it. And that was very interesting. We built bridges, we striped roads, we fought snowstorms, floods, all these kinds of things. And then took a job with the City of Benicia as an engineering manager for 10 years, working again on engineering type disciplines. And then most recently, I've been at the City of Hercules for the last decade as a department director, responsible for all these different kinds of functions I've mentioned. And I just do want to say that after 35 years now of public service, I'm retiring in November. And looking back, I do feel like it was a good run. And for you, all in all, if you have similar interests, I would definitely recommend it as a career. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing all of that, and congratulations on your retirement that's coming up, and thank you for 35 years of public service. All right, so the next question is for Christopher. What is a typical day at work like for you as a Parks and Recreation Director?
So Parks and Recreation, obviously it has a moniker as being the fun department. And it's because we run activities for everyone in, from birth till seniors, right? So we are always looking to run as many different activities as we possibly can to help make the lives of our community members easier. And that may mean preschool for some families, it may be senior citizens, having a place to go for other families. But it's different and unique for all of us. We're all just trying to make our lives easier and better. Every city is a little bit different and runs a little bit differently. In Hercules, we are on a 9.5 hour day work week. So we work Monday through Thursday. I typically look at my day as like an 8:30 to 8:30 or a 9 to 9, give or take, with meetings and other things that happen in the evenings. But Park and Recreation, we start at 5 o'clock in the morning with some activities with swimming or with, before school care or those types of things. And we have programs running until 10 o'clock at night or later with swim team and, gymnastics or volleyball or basketball or whatever else is going on. We also rent our facilities out to community members and to groups and to family members for different things. So we have picnic rentals or facility rentals all hours of the day till even 1, 2 in the morning sometimes at all of our facilities and parks and other things. So if you hear the expression, you feel like you're always on, you do feel like you're always on because you have people working 7 days a week, that accommodate the community. Not everybody has the luxury of having a huge backyard or a big house to entertain. So a lot of times they come out to parks or to rent our facilities or those kind of things. It's not as much cleanup for them to do. So I kind of look at my day as I have my set meetings that have to happen, whether they're daily or weekly or whatever. We hold our executive leadership team meeting on Wednesdays from 1:30. Usually it's about a 2-hour meeting, so 1:30 to 3:30. I have individual meetings with my department team that I do usually on Tuesdays, although that'll vary. And then throughout the week, I have other meetings that are set and organized, and then everything else is around that. And then you never know what's going to happen at any given point of any day. So my day is always kind of upended by a variety of different things. There's needs from every community member, whether they're late on a payment for preschool or whether we have a surprise inspection from Republic Services checking the garbage to make sure that the different garbage containers contain the right stuff, or whether something breaks down and we have to get a work order in or have to attend to it, or a community complaint. There's no shortage of that. 26,000 residents in Hercules, and everyone has an opinion about how cities should be run and what types of things are emergencies. So you have to gauge things as best you can. You have to figure out, the way I always look at it is my work week is set up based on what are my required things that I have to do? How can I be efficient in getting to all of those things done? And then everything else that I want to do, when there's special requests that come down from our elected officials or through the city manager's office, hey, we want to do another event and we want it on whatever it happens to be. And that happens frequently. Again, like I said, we're considered by a lot of people the fun department, and it's because we're trying to make the lives easier for people. We're not everyone can afford nannies and au pairs and private schooling. So when we offer a preschool program, it's usually at a pretty good rate versus a Montessori school or something else that's going to be a little bit more expensive or a lot more expensive. We're trying to help people in their everyday tasks. When we do after-school programs, we're trying to help kids get their homework done so that parents don't have to work on that at the end of the day. If they've put in a long day for themselves, it's hard for them to muster the strength and drive to help their child and their needs. And we all have needs. So I kind of look at my day as whatever comes my way, I'm going to tackle as best I can. I'm going to utilize my team as best I can. I'm going to use this team as best that I can as well, whatever makes sense to tackle. And there's no shortage of calls that come in or issues that come up. Some of the craziest ones that I can think of. I had a citizen call me that their dog was attacked by a goose at one of our parks that has a lake, and they wanted me to do something about it. And my initial thought was, well, we have signs up that say, beware of wildlife. Don't feed the fowl. Most people don't understand when you go to a park and you throw hot dogs out or bread or whatever else to birds, you're actually encouraging really poor nutrition for the birds. They can't digest it. It'll delay their migration. It delays their migration. They stay around longer. And yeah, you have a little dog that's yapping at a goose, and a goose doesn't take kindly to it. I could see a goose attacking a dog. But what am I going to do it as the Park and Recreation Director? There's really not much I can do. We have signage up. We tell people, hey, don't feed the wildlife. It might be mating season, and that's a whole nother story, right? So there's some really interesting things that come up. If you've ever seen the TV show Park and Recreation, some of the stuff that they do, they do it to the nth degree, but a lot of those outlandish things actually really do happen within cities. People think that the city owns everything and is responsible for everything, and we're not. A lot of times there's even areas in the city that are, maybe it's Caltrans or it's a county property or whatever else, but they just see it as it's a city's problem and the city has to take care of it. So I'm sure we all get our share of those things that come up, but no 2 days are really kind of the same. They're the same in structure, but at the end of the day, I always tell my wife, today was a 10-hour sprint, or today was a 12-hour sprint, or whatever it happens to be. But I would say if you're going to look to go into any kind of field in city government or in government in general, you just need to, like anything else, work hard, constantly take a look at what's happening around you and understand the dynamics of what's happening so you can kind of get in front of issues and problems and know that you're not going to get everything. Just do your best and explain to people why. I think most people just want to be heard. That's really what it is. You may not have the answer for everything, but that's why you have other team members that may have other great ideas, and you don't know where everyone's background has come from. So.
And Christopher brings up a good point, that we all deal with, especially Parks and Recreation, is that no 2 days are the same, essentially. But when you work in a small city, you have to wear a lot of different hats, and you have to be creative on a lot of different levels. compared to like a city of San Jose. They have a lot of staff and a lot of members who specialize in a very specific lane, essentially. And that's what they do until they leave that job, promote, or what have you. I think with a smaller city, you get the entire spectrum. I'll give you a quick example. 4 years ago, everyone was dealing with COVID and dealing with social distancing. People were scared to death. They didn't have an outlet because there was a ban. Everybody had to actually stay in their homes. What cities had to do, and it really largely fell on Parks and Rec staff to be creative, what is the outlet? People are going crazy staying inside. They're looking to us for guidance. Where can I go? What's safe? And how can I get some of this energy out? And so it's really taking those desires and aspirations of people, their needs, building regulations around them, and then implementing that. So Parks and Rec, I know Christopher talked about a lot of his daily things. He's really one of the departments that's the glue for the city that kind of holds us together and holds the community.
I also wanted to just add one other thing, and that is every city is different. So in title, we're Park and Recreation, but we're more recreation services. We don't have a parks division under us, so I don't have any parks rangers or anybody that goes out to the parks or stays in the parks or those kinds of things. Some cities are community services or community and recreation services. Some are community and human services or recreation and human services. And human services are things like what Dante was talking about earlier about social services and family services and those kinds of things. So we don't have that in our city. We're not set up for that. That doesn't mean that we don't have to cross over into those areas. Right now, one of the big topics that we're having that's kind of building momentum is inclusion. And we see that everywhere, and the world is changing, and so we need to change too. But what is that going to look like for Hercules as Hercules' population expands? So if you have a specific interest in the field of Parks and Recreation, and maybe it is with human services, look at the municipalities that have those kinds of things and seek the employment there to try to start what you're doing. Not every city is going to have that.
Great. Well, the good thing is that your day is never boring and there's lots of work to do.
Never completely.
All right. So Shauna, tell us about your educational pathway. What degrees or certification were required as you progressed to becoming a senior planner?
Absolutely. So for those of you that missed it, I am a land use planner. I work in the community development department at the city. So I deal with the regulatory aspects of property development. So you'd think that I would need a planning degree, but surprise, surprise, planners actually come from a variety of degree fields. There are architects, there are landscape architects, there are environmental science people, there are geography majors, which is what I have. I have a degree, a BA in geography, political science. There's just a wide list of degree disciplines that are drawn to the land use planning field. I think it's because a lot of those, for lack of a better term, soft skills are equally used in all of those fields. So the degree gets you in the door, internships get you in the door, but the degree background can be a variety of disciplines. So as I said, geography for me. I wasn't interested in going to graduate school, so I wanted a job. And I had a adjunct professor that was teaching the one planning class in the curriculum in geography. And I took that class, and she set me up with an internship. And so I had a couple of internships. I found another one myself and realized that might be a good field for me. And the degree and the internships especially was what got me in the door for my first career path position. While I was working as a land use planner, to give me just a little bit more standing and a little bit more support, I realized about 10 years in, maybe I should get a planning certification. It let me kind of study what planning really was, the theories that I kind of missed throughout the degree field because I didn't have the degree in planning. And so it was really nice to kind of get my feet wet in the planning field through the certification. So I got my AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners, about 10 years in. My employer at the time paid for it as long as I passed. So I passed, I got it paid for, and as long as I get my continuing education credits every year, and I pay the dues for it, I get to retain it. And so it has given me a little bit of a step up. It kind of gives me that kind of support that although I don't have a degree in planning, I do have that certification. And then as I've gone along on this kind of circuitous kind of career path, I've picked up other educational opportunities as they've come up. So a couple of years ago, I was working in a field where I was processing permits a lot, so I got a permit technician certification. There's lots of certifications out there that can help you as you specialize in your field, because land use planning is not only broad in the perspective of the degree fields, but it's also broad in the perspective of the different pathways that you can go throughout your career. And you'll find that you'll need certifications, or you might want certifications, especially given the colleagues that you're working with. At the time that I got my planning certification, I was working with a bunch of colleagues that also had their certification already. And so to kind of meet them in an equal playing field, it was important that I got that time. So it worked out well for me. I think that's about my career pathway.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you.
I love that you pointed out that it was really, it's in addition to the education that helped you on your pathway.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then also that learning is continuous, as a lot of us know. All right. So Chief Vasquez, alumni of Contra Costa College, did you have a mentor that helped you get to where you are along the way?
You know, for me, public safety was never something that I ever intended or was inspired to do. I always say that I didn't choose this profession chose me. And I was fortunate that I listened. I didn't know anybody in law enforcement before I put myself through the academy. If you're fortunate, back when I applied to be an officer back in early 2002, 2003, it was hard. It was difficult. You competed against several hundred candidates just to get into an interview process. So I didn't have any mentors early, but I was fortunate that when I came to the City of Hercules and the Hercules Police Department, there was plenty of guys who were there, men and women, who had plenty of experience, a vast amount of experience and knowledge. And I would tell any of you here who are, you know, aspiring to get into a new profession that you seek out somebody who is traveling or who has traveled the road that you're trying to travel now, because they've already walked that path. I was fortunate enough that I had two sergeants who were there, who had over 20 years of experience, who kind of took me under their wings. And I watched everything that they did, how they carried themselves, you know, how they approached their work, how their demeanor was with the community, and just try to emulate that. I was fortunate enough that they tested me every day. They tested my knowledge to see what my thought process was, and it really made me prepare that much more for every day that I came into work. And the other thing that they did was they would put me in positions to kind of advance myself, you know, take on collateral assignments. As Mr. Hall stated earlier, being a small city, you have to wear a lot of hats. You have to be prepared to do things that maybe sometimes get you out of your comfort zone, and you have to be comfortable with that. So I did a lot of different public events early on. Anytime they had asked me to do anything said, hey, I'll do it. I'm your guy, bring it on. And I took any task that I could. And that's really what helped me to advance to get to where I'm at here today. Everybody at this table, none of us got here alone. We all needed help along the way. It's important to recognize that and to recognize who you want to seek that help from, because there's going to be a time in all your lives, in your professions, that you want to advance, you want to improve yourself. The important thing is to find the right people to try to emulate, and those are the ones that will help you to get to where you're at or where you want to be.
Thank you for that. Yes, definitely finding those people to guide you, important. Thank you for sharing. So the next question is for Mike. Can you share any memorable experiences or challenges you face that have shaped your career path at the City of Hercules?
Thank you. I'd like to actually lead in on this first by calling attention to the blue recycled, reuse, reduced bag you have. So what this bag serves as, you could take it to your grocery store and such, so they don't use plastics and other refuse that gets into the landfill. We have a huge problem with landfills here filling up. So, and then I invite you to reach into the bag and pull out two things. The first is the Hub, a sustainable housing and transportation community. And then the second is a little ferry boat. So if you can grab the little ferry boat. All right. So if you put it above your head here, this is what you do. You squeeze. Are you feeling stressed? Squeeze. Do you want to strengthen your grip? Squeeze. Also, it is important, I think, to link the activities, intellectual activities you do with your body and connect the two so you don't become a discombobulated brain or body wandering around. So now the Hercules Hub is what's called a intermodal transportation station. So it's going to be a node, if you will, that is served by ferry, but also Capital Corridor train, and also bus. And it's being built in the City of Hercules on the waterfront, surrounded by a transportation or a transit-oriented development, which is housing. I think there's something like 1,500 units. And so the whole purpose, like the bag, is to link people with public transit so they don't have to get on the freeway, spend huge amounts of time on the freeway, and also then reduces greenhouse gas because they're not burning gasoline, obviously. So to date, we've built $46 million in improvements, including connecting Bayfront, which is on the waterfront, with State Route 4680 to provide access to the future station. And it's not all just roads and such. We actually restored 1,500 feet of Refugio Creek with the project, which was a wonderful aspect of it. We also built 2 phases of what's called the Bay Trail. You may be familiar with it. It runs along the bay and people walk and bike on it. And so it's very beneficial because it promotes an active lifestyle to get people out walking and exercising and doing other things. There's actually $100 million approximately left of construction to do. That's to actually put in tracks, railroad tracks on a different alignment, and then build a platform for the train, and then also a station building for people to use for the train and for bus and also for the future ferry. But I think the most memorable experience for me on this was just the opportunity to rub elbows with so many different kinds of people. Not only in my profession, with ocean engineers, rail engineers, road engineers, pipeline engineers, also in the environmental field with all of the biologists in terms of the environmental work that needs to be done, but then as well partnering agencies that are supporting this project and helping fund it financially. So this would be the West Contra Costa Transportation Authority, located in El Cerrito, Contra Costa Transportation Authority, which oversees transportation for the entire county, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which oversees transportation for the mega region, Capital Corridor Train Station, et cetera. Also working with social media experts as well as lobbyists on grants. And so it's just absolutely amazing to have the opportunity to work with all these different types of people, see how these large projects in California actually come together and get built. And for me, it really changed and expanded my perspective on what it meant to deliver projects in California. Yeah, so that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're never a dull moment. Okay. Um, so the next question is for Chief Vasquez. What makes the City of Hercules or local government in general, that sector, an attractive place to work?
Well, I would say it's, for me, it's the people. People within the organization. We work with a great diverse group of people who genuinely care about the public, the community. And that's what we do. We're here to serve the community. We spend a lot of time together, and we really, being a smaller organization, we rely on collaboration within the organization so that things can function as effective and efficiently as possible. For me, specifically for public safety, you know, in my humble opinion, I will tell you that I think it's the most noble profession that there is. To serve your public, to put your life on the line, and to be in the way of danger is noble. You know, it's not a normal thing for somebody to want to do. But there's a lot of satisfaction out of serving the community. Specifically in the City of Hercules, we have such a strong connection with our community. It's important. I can walk into pretty much any restaurant or any store and they know me by my first name. And I love it. I love having the connection with my community. That is a big reason why I do what I do. So, yeah, for me, absolutely, it's the people, not only within the organization, but the community that we serve.
Thank you. All right. And, okay, Dante, can you walk us through a typical application process for a position within the City of Hercules?
Sure. And I think I have a slide too that kind of walks you through the process. But first, I want to start with cities are facing, and they have for the last several years, in the industry, you call it kind of a silver tsunami. And what that means is you have a lot of very experienced people who have been working for cities for a long time, like our Public Works Director, Mike Roberts, who are getting ready to retire. And what cities are facing is not having the people to actually fill in, to backfill those positions and ready to step up into that leadership role. And so our goal, essentially, here in the City of Hercules and a lot of other cities, is to try to work with people and appeal to people to consider the public sector, because there are going to be a lot of jobs there. There are going to be a lot of spaces to kind of backfill. But our process in the City of Hercules, obviously there's a recruitment process. We have one job that is open now, essentially, that we'll be recruiting for the replacement for Mr. Roberts. And then there are other positions that are going to be coming up that are entry level, but gets you into the door and gives you options of progressing and developing. So when there's a recruitment, there's generally an online application process that happens. There'll be an assessment internally, and there's an eligibility list, essentially, that's created. And after that eligibility list is created, people are invited to an interview. It's not different from a lot of other agencies. A decision is made, it goes through reference checks, medical examinations, And then there's a final selection and placement. And so that process, we like to keep it as, as succinct as possible in our city. In some other agencies, there's a longer hiring process, there's a longer testing process, but for us, if there's a qualified talent pool, we like to make those decisions as quickly as possible. So that's how it operates in the city of Hercules.
Right. Thank you so much. That is straightforward compared to some other governances. So now we'll move on to closing remarks. Each of the panelists will have an opportunity to tell us one tip or trick that really helped them get started on the right foot with their career, or if they struggled initially, how they turned it around, and any other final thought. So I'll move it to this slide while we go through the closing remarks. And maybe we'll start from the other side. We'll start with Shauna.
Okay. I guess looking at my career, I've stayed kind of nimble and flexible in my mindset of how I define my career path. My degree, my internships, my experience has definitely got me in the door, but my soft skills have made me more valuable. I've had opportunities that I never expected to have as I've entered the public sector. Not only a planner, primarily a planner, but I've also been a building official. I've been a vice president of economic development and business development. I've been a volunteer services supervisor for a Parks and Recreation department, one of the jurisdictions I worked for. And all of those unique kind of roles were because I was in the public sector, and they found my skills valuable. So they recruited me into these other positions to fulfill a need. One of the things that I didn't do early in my career that I wish I would have was to be part of a professional organization. And all of our different career paths have professional organizations that are attached to them, and they always want students to be engaged. They always want young professionals or new professionals to be involved. And that really would have been beneficial as I was starting out to make those connections with other colleagues in my career path that could have made my transition to some of my career path a little bit more easier. So I guess that would be my thought about my experience and what would have been helpful. On to you, Mike.
Thank you, Shauna. So, kind of a saying in public works that the only people who don't make mistakes are people who don't do anything. So, put yourself out there. Everyone makes mistakes. Make sure you're in a supportive environment that knows how things really work. And the thing is, when you make a mistake or have a bad experience, recognize it and learn from it. Don't push it away. The first thing to do is people want to push it away. Because what you'll find later on in your career is everything that happened to you, including the worst things, provide you the best information and knowledge on how to work through the next thing. So definitely don't be afraid to take risks and stagnate. Put yourself out there and enjoy the ride and learn from it. Thank you.
And I would say my closing comments are kind of relate to something that I learned earlier in my career, is that people really care more about what happens outside their door, a lot of times more than they care about what's happening in the world, essentially. And we in city service are kind of the tip of that spear. Whenever there's an issue or problem, whether we can do something about it or not, we're expected to at least work on it, essentially. I put up some of the reasons to consider public service. It's really a mission-driven purpose. You know, obviously we can't compete with salaries of Apple or some of the tech firms, essentially. but it's about mission. If you care about the values of climate change, public sector is a place for you. There's a place for you with that. If you care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the public sector is a place for you. And so it's the other points are helping to really shape community resolutions in meaningful ways. So the work that you do, you can directly see the benefits of that work. Sometimes the work that other places that create widgets, you can't really see the benefit of that directly all the time. But you can actually go out and see, I've built some housing where people can afford to live there now. They're not living in blighted situations. I have created jobs for people to make a living. I've created programs for people to take care of their children, their loved ones, and seniors. And so if you are oriented towards value and mission and purpose, I would say definitely consider public sector.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of shaped my career early on was I was introduced to the idea of doing a visual resume. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that in this group before, but a visual resume is really thinking about the things that you like to do. What are the things that you gravitate most towards? Write those down. And when you write them down, there may be 2 or 3 or 4 things that stand out. For me, it was 3 things. It was recreation. I was brought up in recreation programs. My father was a park and rec commissioner in Alameda. He was also a teacher, and so was my mother. I was a product of 2 teachers. And so teaching was important to me. I always played sports. Athletics was always important to me. There was a lot of things that I really enjoyed that I started to write down. One of the other things that I liked doing was I noticed early on I like to talk and I like to argue a lot. And so I was very much in line for sports broadcasting, if you can picture that too. I mean, who doesn't like watching Stephen A., right? But I kind of, my visual resume was really a triangle. It was recreation, coaching or teaching in some capacity, or sports broadcasting. And I've done all 3 of those things. And what I noticed initially was, well, hey, I went to UCLA. It's kind of like John Wooden's pyramid of success. And I started looking at what John Wooden would talk about and some of the quotes that he gave. And one of the quotes that always stood out to me from John Wooden was, discipline yourself so others don't have to. What does that mean? Well, when you hear from, and I'm going to jump all over the board here, when you hear from an admiral in the United States Navy, and they say that the most important thing in your day is to make your bed, and you wonder why they would say that, and they say because you want to build as many successful endeavors every day. If the first thing you do when you get up is make your bed, you have a sense of accomplishment. So having these successes, and you build on each success all the way down, all day long, you start to feel more confident, you start to do more, you want to do more, you want to take on more. So my triangle of the things that I like to do, John Wooden's triangle, discipline yourself so others don't have to. It all kind of led to, what I really like to do, but I kind of put my entire career and my entire life into a visual resume. If anybody is interested in seeing it, I'm happy to share with it. But basically what it is I have just icons of where I was educationally, where I went to school. I have jobs in the recreation field that I have been involved in. I have jobs in collegiate athletics. I worked in collegiate athletics for many years. And these were my passions. I also worked at several news stations, radio stations, and did sports broadcasting. I even went to a sports broadcasters camp in the late 80s, and I predicted at the camp that Shaquille O'Neal was going to go to the Lakers. I was just joking around. I had no knowledge of it. 2 years later, he's signing a contract with the Lakers. I just thought it was absolutely funny. But find your passion, whatever your passion is. write it down. And it's easier sometimes to do it visually than what each skill you have done and writing that resume. So if you start with a visual resume, that was the trick for me, was I started with what I liked, and I found out, like, I'm not going to go after just this. I'm going to do something in each one of these fields. And as you start to do it, everything starts to blossom and open up. My degree is not in recreation. My undergraduate degree is in history and English. My graduate degree is in sports management. So there is no one right way to get there. Whatever your passion is, follow it and do it to the most of your ability. That's my advice.
Thank you, Chief Vasquez.
Sure. If I can give you two parting words to think about, I would say commitment and resiliency. Whatever profession that you want to get into, make sure you're committed to that profession, because you can't come into any profession and half-step it and think that you're going to be successful. My path to this profession was extremely unconventional and probably not ideal. I wasn't even sure that this is what I wanted to do until I was halfway through the police academy. I had negative experiences with law enforcement growing up, and I just did. But I wanted to be an agent for change. And I didn't want to be somebody who just talked about it. I wanted to be changed by action. So halfway through the academy, which I had to put myself through because no other city or department would pick me up at that time, I found that this was something that I could do, and I could be that change. After graduating the academy, I had applications everywhere. I interviewed at so many different cities, and I still wasn't getting any kind of interest out there. I have a file to this day that's probably this thick from other cities saying thank you, but no thank you. I still have it because it's a reminder for me to stay humble and just to remember where I came from, how hard it was to get to where I'm at today. So that is the resiliency part. You can't be afraid to fail. Failure is a part of who we are as being imperfect humans. As long as you can learn from that failure and advance and improve yourself, that's where you want to be. That's that zone you want to be in. So I would say stay committed. Don't get down if the first place that you apply at doesn't hire you. Find a place that you fit. Make sure that that city, that department, that profession, whatever it is that you want to get into, that it's the right culture for you. I was fortunate to land here in Hercules, and even Hercules itself, it wasn't an easy start for me. I had the chief at that time first offered me a position and then rescinded that position and said, hey, listen, I don't feel completely comfortable giving you a job right now, but would you mind coming in as a volunteer, as a reserve? I had a family. I had a house. I had a payment, house payment, car payments, 4 kids. But this was the only, chance I had, and I was about at the end of my rope, and I accepted it. I did it for 7 months. The last 2 months, there was a position coming up. I took a leave of absence from my job. I took an equity line of credit out of my house. I paid all my bills for 2 months for that equity line of credit. And I just banked on the fact that if I came in there, I hustled, I showed effort, I showed some grit, they were going to give me an opportunity. 20 years later, I'm here with my colleagues on this panel talking to you. And it's only because I was committed and I had resiliency. So if I can leave with any two words today, keep those in mind. And whatever it is that you do, and if you don't give up, you can accomplish anything.
Okay. Thank you for sharing all of your words of wisdom. We'll now open it up to Q&A from the audience. We have Megan who has the microphone, so just raise your hand and she can walk around and share the mic with you if you have a question for the panel. And if there are questions from the online group, you can just put them in the chat and Christine will read out any questions from online. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you. There's a question for Mike Roberts. What entry-level positions would be available for someone with AA degrees in sociology and psychology?
What was the second emphasis?
Psychology.
Oh, psychology. Um, So in Public Works, the entry-level types of jobs are on the maintenance and operations side, it's called a maintenance worker one. That's, basically flagging traffic, digging trenches, pouring concrete, replacing signs. Over on the engineering side, the entry level could be something from helping in the office or being an inspector or doing invoicing and billing and those kinds of things. So when we get applications, generally we just ask for an associate degree or something of the sort in a related field. And so if the individual has experience in these other areas, then they would be considered qualified. So you don't have to have a associate's degree in the field for which you're hired, just the experience and the interest in doing it. Thank you.
There's another question. Thank you so much for your answer. For Dante Hall, is priority given to internal employees for open positions in the City of Hercules?
Not always. And it kind of depends on what the job is and what it requires. The way I like to look at filling positions is I'd like to see new talent. I like to visit and for people to share fresh perspectives from their experiences. And so I value that. Mike talked a little bit about entry level jobs in his department. I want to add on to that in saying that we deal a lot with transferable skills. For instance, in every department, there is a communication aspect of it. There's a technical work of the road or whatever the open position is, but then there is communication to staff, communication to our policymakers, our council, and communication to the public in general. So a lot of those skills are what we look at when we hire new people, and I highly value new talent and new perspectives on situations.
We have she's bringing the microphone for you.
Thank you.
So this is a follow-up to 2 questions ago for Mike. So suppose someone doesn't have the related experience. Are there resources available for like offer training or assistance with taking courses, something of that nature?
Do you mean in general or at the city?
Sorry, I should have clarified. For like construction, labor, cement pouring, trades, that sort of area.
Yeah. So as far as having an interest in construction, whether it's carpentry, concrete, steelworking, electrical, drywall, plumbing, there is Contra Costa Trades, and they have an outstanding pipeline of apprenticeship. I think it's 3 years long, and most of the contractors we work with at Hercules are members of that union. Then also there are contractors who aren't union as well, and they hire people. Generally, that's the best way to get into construction. Most of what we do at the city is more maintenance, so it's more, emptying trash cans, cleaning bathrooms, cutting limbs down from trees that are hanging over, that sort of thing. And then to qualify, for that particular type of work, you need relevant experience. A lot of people pick it up by, working on the private sector side to get 1 or 2 years in order to meet the qualifications.
Good afternoon to all of you. Why should one choose Hercules in regards to housing, job, safety?
So I think it kind of boils down to what I mentioned before. My job is really to take all of the issues that are impacting and affecting our community and look for solutions to those. I think Hercules, because of our size, we have to wear a lot of different hats. And so there is room for a lot of different disciplines. And so I would say choosing Hercules over another city would be the ability to learn and to grow, essentially, and develop your skills, because you're not just pigeonholed into one area. Some cities, they hire you as an analyst, and you're doing work in the HR department, and you're viewing documents essentially all day long, and that's all the interaction that you get. In Hercules, you're dealing with the public. You're having public meetings. You are dealing with issues that are real and not just kind of academic or paper issues, I would say. And so Hercules values itself at providing good customer service to the public. And so I would say a person who joins us and joins our team there will get that exposure to a lot of different issues and get a lot of experience and development in a lot of different areas that are related to certain issues. So I think that that's probably the most valuable thing that our size of organization offers that other organizations do not.
I could piggyback that real quick, just to illustrate that point. I've been with Hercules for a little over 8 years. I have a recreation coordinator position that's now a recreation supervisor position that oversees aquatics. And for those people that work in aquatics, it's a specialized field. And so you're either in or you're not. If you're in, you have to go all in and commit for sure. But there's been 4 people that have sat in that seat in the 8 years I've been there. One of them is now the director in American Canyon. One of them is now the director in Dixon. And the other one is the deputy director in San Carlos. My point is, when you work in a small city, like City Manager Hall said, you get to wear a lot of different hats. You are working on the problems. You are working on solutions to those, and you're honing your skills every day. And not a single one of us could have made it to where we're at without mentorship, without guidance, without people in our corner. And just real quick sidebar about Chief, I've heard his story before. I know somebody who applied for 75 city manager jobs before they got their first job. Resiliency is key. You are going to fail. You are going to get knocked down, but don't let it stop you. You have to just keep going and trying. That's the biggest thing, because it's not all just going to come every single time that you apply.
If I can add to that. Yeah. Can I add one more thing to that? It's, the one thing that Hercules offers is a personal connection. Being a small city, there are personal relationships. We don't just work together. We break bread together. We talk about things. When somebody is going through something personal, we communicate. And I think that's very important to have that kind of a connection. And you don't get that everywhere. For me, overseeing my department, I want my people to come in and to be happy that they're there for work. I want them to look forward to going to work. It's not, I have to go to work. I get to go to work. So it's having that personal connection with your employees, with each other. That is unique. And that goes back to culture, having a strong culture. That culture was there, it existed long before any of us got here. We just continue to foster it and build on it. And I think that's important. And we talk about building, succession planning is important. You know, we're not just looking at today, we're looking at down the road. Who are going to be the people that are going to take over for us? Because we're not going to be here forever. So we try to do a good job of putting people in place to be successful in developing their careers further.
What are core or soft skills that resonates between all of them?
I would say dealing with people, working with people, and communication. When you think about an issue that on the surface may seem simple, you know, I'll take an issue. We're going to have to address an issue where we're going to have to raise sewer fees, you know, for our city. When you look at that issue, there's really a lot from cradle to grave. You have to do the analysis. You have to figure out what do we need to sustain ourselves, you know, into the future with sewer fees. You have to look at, okay, the normal person isn't going to want to pay more fees or more taxes. So how do you communicate that to a person? How do you gain this public trust that you have their best interest in mind and you're being open and transparent? You go from there to developing a policy that the city council makes a law about, essentially, all the way through the implementation of people who, okay, I really don't understand this, or, you know, this isn't working properly. How do I resolve that? So something that connects us all is just working with people, personal relationships with people, and also just communication. Communication is one of the strongest kind of factors for a city manager. A city manager needs to be able to communicate on every level with staff, the public, and everyone. And I think that is the thread that kind of ties us all together.
Thank you so much. Were there any other questions online?
What is the best way to find open job positions?
So I can answer that. And so if we put up a slide before, and at the bottom of that slide was the link, essentially, that takes us to the recruitment page. And you can actually check that link. Human resources, I'm sorry, so I don't have to turn around, that you see up there.
And we will send this slide deck out to all of the attendees so you have access to it.
Right, so human resources link at herculesca.gov, essentially, that takes you to the recruitment page, and it tells you about all of our open opportunities we have with our city. And you can also actually subscribe to it, so you will get notifications when job openings come up.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you all so much for sharing your valuable insights. I do have some certificates that I'll give to you. At this time, we'll transition. If you all would like, you can remain here or move into the audience if you would like. I'm going to introduce Catherine Fonseca from our Career Services team to do a brief resume workshop.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for the panel. This was great information. Welcome, everybody. My name is Catherine Fonseca. I am here from Career Services. As you heard from our panel today, there's a lot of things that play into effect when you're applying into the job. Not only the training, not only your continuing professional development, your likes, your strengths. So we'll talk briefly about how to really highlight or how to create a basic resume. Before I get started, I also would like to introduce my counterpart, and I'll let Megan introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan Ortega. I'm one of the others. I help students specifically find internships. So we do a lot of different things in our office, but I specifically help students get internships. And one of the key tools to be able to do that is having a tip-top shape resume. So you guys all in your packet / when you guys entered in got a resume packet. We'll be talking about some of those resources there. So if you guys want to pull that out, I would suggest kind of looking that over kind of as we're talking. And then if you have any questions, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll get to those as well, okay?
Also, for the sake of time, just so that you know, we only have about 10 minutes or so. We do also schedule one-on-one appointments with students. So if you need additional support, additional questions, please let us know. You can definitely schedule an appointment with us, okay? So just really quick, just to get you an idea, the purpose of a resume, or actually what we'll talk about is briefly, if we have time, cover letters, but mostly resume, parts of a resume, and then some tools like the packet that we have for you, okay? The resume is pretty much a marketing tool. This is where you're going to highlight and communicate and articulate your skill set. Like someone in the panel mentioned, communication. Regardless of what kind of job you do, you need to make sure that you have good communication, right? So how do you highlight that in your resume? We'll talk about that. Also, it's an organized document that will highlight your skill set, okay? And this is your first impression when you're applying to jobs. Quick question. How long does an employer look at your resume? How long? Yes. Like how many? 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Anybody else, really quick?
Yeah. 15 seconds.
And actually, it's about 6 to 7 seconds, really quick. So when you're highlighting your skill set, you want to make sure that you utilize specific techniques that will allow you to really look at an employer. Thank you. To look at an employer, allow the employer to look at your resume and determine whether or not you move on to the next level, right? As we saw earlier about the city's hiring process, it's a multifaceted step. So how do you highlight your resume to be able to move on to the next level? Okay. There's a couple different types of resume. You do have that information in your packet. There's a chronological resume, but there's also a functional resume. They both serve something different. Functional will be for the individual who is actually changing careers, has a gap of employment, and they're maybe brand new to that field or brand new to the work world. Okay? Where the chronological one is more typical, you see more often, you highlight your work history. Okay. All right, so these are some of the elements of your resume. Of course, there's different formats where you can highlight your resume, but you definitely want to make sure that you have some of these, if not all of them, if appropriate, if needed by the employer. Okay, once again, this is in your packet, your resume packet. Now we're going to go into each one really quick.
So you guys might think, like, why are they spending all this time, and is there a whole slide dedicated to your name up at the top? So the reason I specifically like to harp on this is because I also do a lot of hiring. So I hire student workers, help people with their hiring process for our college, our district. I've sat on a ton of different panels and just have a ton of experience hiring people. And one of the number one things that I tell students specifically is if I can't get a hold of you, you're not getting the job, right? And so that is something that is really, really important. Make sure that you have a proper email and a proper phone number. Make sure that your voicemail is set up. I can't tell you how many times I call people and their voicemail box is full. And if I can't get a hold of you, then again, That 7 seconds of a first impression, okay, you got through. I've looked at your resume, I think you're a good fit, so maybe I'm calling you for an interview, or to even just tell you, like, I want to hire you. If I can't get a hold of you, that's a huge problem. So that's why I just spend a extra minute or two harping on that. One of the other things is your email. So another silly thing that I often see from students, sometimes maybe it's their first resume, or they've never had employment before and they have an email that they made when they were younger, or something that's just not a maybe great description of them. It'll be like pinkprincess@gmail.com. Well, instead of pink princess, probably not the most professional thing, even though I'm sure you're a pink princess in your personal life, probably having your name at gmail.com or vice versa is a better tool. Other things to note is that email different channels. So, AOL or Comcast or some of the older platforms can also aid you. So making sure that you're using a Gmail or a Yahoo or your school email to kind of identify yourself and make sure that you're checking it, making sure that your emails aren't getting sent to your spam folder, your junk, are just really important. So that's why I spend, again, an extra minute or two just talking about the contact information alone. It's the first thing someone reads on your resume and is really important. Okay, so the next are going to be the next section that would be key would be an objective statement. Has anyone ever heard of what an objective statement is, or have you ever written one before? No? Okay, so an objective statement essentially communicates. So your resume is all about communication. It communicates what positions or field that you might be interested in. So again, it's that part of that first impression that highlights to an employer what your passions are, what your interests are. Is it a specific position? Are you looking for internship or a full-time job? Highlighting what your top skills are in that first introductory part of your resume can be that great first impression. Okay, and then next, I'm guessing since you all are here at Contra Costa College, you guys are all students of some sort, whether you have a degree, you went back to school, you're pursuing something new, or you're just continuing your education, you're a lifelong learner, whatever that might be, your education would be the next section that goes after your objective. And the reason that we have that is because your top section of your resume, again, is the most prime real estate on your resume. It shows to employers what you're currently pursuing. It also might be checking a box for a job requirement. So maybe the job that you're applying for requires you to have a certain degree or to have taken a certain class or any of those other things. And so again, that's why we're being strategic in how we're listing out what goes on your resume. It also might be a bragging opportunity. So maybe you have a 4.0 GPA, or maybe you were on the dean's list last year. All of those different types of things are opportunities for you to showcase your skill set, your skills, and your abilities to, again, highlight why you are the great applicant and why you would want to be hired versus maybe somebody else. Okay, that's just in a little bit more detail of like format-wise of why you would want to do that. And again, more of that information's in your packet. Okay, other things to include would be your work experience. So whether you've had a long career history or this is your first time having a job, your work experience would go next. And so a lot of times students might go, this is my first job, so I don't have a ton of things to put. Well, I can probably almost guarantee that you have some sort of employability skills. And so that's where we can often talk about soft skills, and what a couple of the panelists talked about that. So what makes you employable? You can always focus on that. But then otherwise, you're listing out your employment history. So talking about any jobs that you've had, any key responsibilities, things, again, that are trying to make you stand out and also fit that job requirement that you're hoping to apply for. Oftentimes, I tell students if they're stuck at this point, so they don't know what to do, they don't know how to describe the work that they've had, look at job descriptions. So maybe you're interested in an internship with the City of Hercules. The City of Hercules, I bet you, put out a job description essentially describing their ideal candidate, right? So if you can go through that job description that they provided and highlight things about what they're looking for, and you can then reflect upon yourself, do you have those skills, and how can you then demonstrate that on your resume? So then when you go to apply for the job, their keywords of what they're searching for and what's on your resume then match and kind of make you the ideal candidate, right? Does anyone have any questions about those sections so far? Nope. Okay. And again, all of this can be in a lot more detail in the resume packet. There's some formatting techniques. We always want to tell students to talk in past tense. So if a job happened 4 years ago, you would be using past tense. We prefer the bullet point method of describing your work. So using bullet points, not complete thoughts or long paragraphs, but still being able to pack a punch. So using key action verbs, detailed language, and also including things like numbers or results. So for example, in our office, our student workers help students all the time. So a student worker could put help student all the time as one of their bullet points. Instead, they could put that they help hundreds of students every day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and using descriptive words. Who are these students? Are they college students? Are they high school students? Are they preschoolers? So describing who you're helping, all of those details just add in more information about your skill set.
Okay. Now, the next couple of slides, I'm going to go really fast and probably not into detail for the sake of time. We want to honor your time today. But just also be aware that it's also important that if you don't have a lot of work experience, that you do highlight any volunteer work or any community service, any involvement that you have in our campus. That is work experience. Although you may not be getting compensated any money for it, that is a skill set that you're attaining, right? Like the panel said earlier, talking to people, working with a diverse group of people, meeting deadlines, getting goals done, having outcomes, right? So how do you articulate that if you don't have any specific work experience where you're getting paid for? You can definitely highlight campus involvement, and you would do it very similar to the way that you highlight your work experience, okay? Very similar way with bullet points, action verbs. If it's something that you used to do, you use past tense. If you're still doing it, you use present tense. And like I said, volunteer experience. Make sure that you use reverse chronological order. The most recent activity or job or volunteer experience goes on top, and it goes reverse chronological order, okay? All right, skill set. This is another big one. If you speak foreign languages, if you have especially if it's something that is required for the job, like being certified, CPR certification, right? Or speaking of a different language, you wanna make sure that you also highlight any specific skill set. One thing that we did not mention earlier is that we also wanna make sure that, because how many seconds does the employer look at your resume? 6 to 7 seconds. We want to make sure that you're not writing a book, right? You're not submitting a resume that is 10 pages long. So things that you need to keep in mind is the information on that resume relevant and needed for this job? We want to make sure that unless you have tons of years of experience, nothing should be more than 2 pages long. Even 2 pages, if you don't have a lot of experience, is too long. We can limit it to 1 page, okay? Now, if you have tons of experience, then at that point, we're not looking at a resume. We're looking at a CV, which is a slightly different format, which you can put more information in there. But if you don't have a lot of experience, you should not be looking at a CV, okay? All right. Now, these are some skills that when you meet with us, we actually help you develop and identify the skill set that is not only needed for the job, but also that you bring things that you have done in the past. Because sometimes it's hard to kind of reflect on what we've done, right? Sometimes we're a little bit modest. We're like, I don't know what I did. I just help people. I was just a cashier. Well, as a cashier, it's not just cashiering, it's so much more that goes into it. So come and meet with us because we can help you articulate that in your resume, right? You can make an appointment with us for additional information. I'm not going to continue on because, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. We're 1 minute away from 2 o'clock, but we are here to help you out. Although there's a lot of technology that you may use online to start off with that resume, know that HR departments can tell the difference between when a real person created the document versus when a machine in a computer created the document. So be aware, yes, their ChatGPT can be helpful, but it should not be the final point of developing your resume. Okay, we are here to put that human perspective to it. We're here to help you highlight your skill set. And for the sake of time, won't continue on. Come to the Career Center. We're in SAB 227, right above the culinary across the way. And you can meet with us for a personalized, resume writing or practice interview skills and so much more. All right. Oh, is there questions?
Yes, thank you. There's one question online asking, when you graduate with multiple AA degrees at once, how should you format that when they're all majors?
Yeah, once again, it depends on what type of job you're applying for when you graduated. You want to make sure that you spell out the degree. You put the highest degree on top, right? So if you have a AA degree that you earned 5 years ago, you put it on the bottom. Now you have a bachelor's, you have a master's, you put it on top. So, but if you have questions, schedule an appointment so we can personalize that and look at your specific case. Okay? Well, thank you all. Now we're going to see you all one appointments, right? All right. There is some snacks in the back, so please help yourselves as you exit. Okay. Thank you so much.